Well, in this episode of Cell TV, if you're a health hunter or a health seeker, oh yeah, tune in. This gentleman made it very clear that this is who he is, and he brings his favorite healing hacks. Matter of fact, the name of his book. But we talk about Wim Hof. He knew Wim Hof personally. If you don't know Wim Hof, stay tuned because I think he's the most fascinating man on earth. And he teaches Wim Hof method, which I believe you need to know. And we talk about four biohacks that I think this is the real deal. And every one of you need to know these if you're seeking your health.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cellular Healing TV. I'm Ashley Smith, and today we welcome Ian Hart. Ian is here to talk about his own pain to purpose story, going from a peak condition, top of the world athlete to his health spiraling out of control. When no healthcare professional could tell him what was going wrong, Ian made a choice to heal himself, and he's here to share his story about how he ditched his expensive medications and began a natural healing journey that finally gave him control over his health. In his book, Healing Hacks, Ian unveils his step-by-step system for sparking the healing mechanisms in your body, and he will outline those hacks here today. So let's get started and welcome Ian Hart and, of course, Dr. Pompa to the show. Welcome, both of you.
Ian, it's funny, we were having a conversation ahead of this, and, being an exercise guy, I was like, just reminding you that my audience is health seekers. Right. And, because when I have Ben Greenfield on, his audience is like these biohack performance people. And I have to remind him that like my audience is this. And when I go on his shows, I have to remind myself of his audience. But you were like, you made it very clear. No, I'm a health seeker. This is what inspired me. And I can't even imagine looking at you now that you were even on medications. But with that said, that's what inspired you to write the book. I want to hear all about it. And I want to hear in this episode these healing hacks that we all need to hear because we are health seekers, man. It's what inspires me even to this day as I fear going back ever.
And I have to say that you are one of the people that inspired me. I heard you on a podcast and I heard your story and I was like, man, this guy has had a very similar story to mine. And it really sparked another level of healing because just hearing your story, and this is what it's all about. That's why I'm here for this. So
start with that because, again, as I inspired you, you'll inspire others. Now you're writing books, you're doing summits, you're changing the world, and that's my thing, right? From pain to purpose. You're right. Obviously in your purpose, but what was your story?
Well, so to start off, I was already into health and fitness. I was a trainer. I was already teaching people how to get healthy and fit, and I thought I knew what health and fitness was. And then I found out the hard way. And I really found out the hard way. Like I was so driven, so motivated, and I was just pushing through pain until something broke. And that's where I identified with your story. Like I was an athlete, I was training hard, pushing hard, working hard. And then I got sick, was put on medication. I ran a race on medication. And that made me more sick. And then I was given more medication. And then boom, that was really what broke the camel's back.
What medications? What did they have you on? I mean, how old were you when this happened?
I was 27 and I was diagnosed with walking pneumonia and I was given a fluoroquinolone called Avelox, which wasn't even approved for the market. And it was like, basically like a low dose of chemotherapy, which I found out later on. And I found out through extensive research that what these drugs do. No one told me. There was no warning. Even the doctors didn't ask, like, what did you take? It took me years, and then it finally clicked. And it's a combination of things. I wouldn't say it was just that solely, although just that solely has destroyed tens of thousands of people's lives.
Did you end up with fluoroquinolone poisoning or toxicity, which many do, and it's just horrible to the nerve system?
I believe so. And I never got like diagnosed with that, but my nervous system was shot. My brain was swollen. I basically had like almost autistic type symptoms like dementia.
It sounds like you had fluoroquinolone poisoning, which, by the way, those watching this, Google it. If you've taken certain antibiotics that have fluoroquinolone in them and other medications, then that could be why someone's sick. So go ahead, keep sharing.
So yeah, it just, I couldn't figure out what was going on with me. I had gut issues, brain issues, joint inflammation. And I was like supposed to be in the peak of my life. I was in the best shape of my life. I was physically and mentally fit, which I think is what got me through all that.
Yeah.
And things just kept getting worse and worse and worse until I ended up in the hospital and I almost died. And so that was the point where it was like, okay, first off, the pain I was going through was just beyond what most people could probably deal with. And then when I ended up in the hospital, I was like, I don't know that I want to live anymore, to be honest, because this is just so painful. My life has become so miserable. And I made a declaration there that I'm going to heal myself and I'm going to do it. And I'm going to share my experience with others. And that was actually my motivation, and to dig myself up out of that hole. And so, yeah, here I am now. And it's taken some time and a lot of experimenting, a lot of just doing crazy stuff. And
well, I want to hear about some of the crazy stuff, because again, as my health seekers are going, please tell me, what did you do? So I want to hear about, and again, this kind of highlights your book, because, obviously you wrote in the book are these things that you felt like these were big things. I want my people to hear what these things are. And but I also want to hear some of your expertise is exercise. And one of the things that is classic amongst us who are struggling for health is back pain. And you've dialed some of those in, so we're going to hear about that as well. But let's start with some of these things that you did to get your life back that you feel every one of my viewers need to know.
Well, so one of the things I was totally unaware of is I had my whole mouth had amalgam fillings in it. This is one of the things I've heard you talk about, and it's connected with almost, right? You probably deal with this all the time. So when I was in the hospital, I was told you need Endocort. It's a medication for like Crohn's disease, et cetera, immunomodulator. And basically, they said you're going to be on it the rest of your life. And I went home. It was like $1,800 a month medication. I went home and researched it, and I was like, this isn't even proven to work. Like, they don't even know if this works or not. It's like 50-50, and then there's a rebound effect. If you come off of it, it could cause more complications. And so, but they were pumping the fear into me. And I have my buddy, you might not know him, Dr. Osborne, Peter Osborne.
I do know.
Yeah, so I called him on the phone, and he said, man, you can do this on your own. And after the conversation with him, I was like, that's it. This is the confidence it gave me. I decided I'm not going with the medication. I'm going to heal myself on my own. And so I started that journey. And the first thing I did was worked with a holistic guy. And as soon as I told him I had my whole mouth filled with amalgam fillings, he was kind of like, oh my God, you have that many amalgam fillings? You got to get them removed right away.
Yeah.
And so we started, it was a Klinghardt protocol for detoxing and killing the microbes in the gut. And that started to help me a little bit, but I think I was so deep down the rabbit hole that in 3 months, I'd gotten better results than I'd ever seen with any medical doctor. And so that really sparked like, wow, no one even questioned these things. No one even asked me these things previously. This guy was in Hong Kong. He just took my hair sample and did a paperwork fill out. And the next thing I know, he's on point with my healing rather than any of the medical experts that I'd spoken to. And so that really opened my eyes and awakened me to what the other potential is. And then from there, I just continued. And man, I tried everything from GCMAF, which is,
for cancer, they use it. Yeah.
Right. For protein. I did the sauna detox, niacin detox, which it probably, my pathways weren't opened up, my detox pathways, which I'm sure you talk about. And
by the way, I tried all these detox things, and I realized I was getting worse or nowhere. You know, that's why everything I teach today came out of it's figuring it out.
Exactly. Yeah. So I got worse in a lot of different ways because I didn't have the detox pathways opened up. And then I got into Qigong and breathing, and which is one of the most powerful things you can do. And then when I came across the Wim Hof method, I knew that was something I wanted to get into. He
endorsed your book, if I know correctly, right?
Yeah, he wrote the foreword to the book. I'm a Wim Hof instructor. So yeah, he.
Tell people who Wim Hof is. The guy's extraordinary. Just.
Yeah, so Wim Hof, if you haven't heard of Wim Hof, but now he's almost mainstream, about 1 in 3 people at least hear about him. But Wim Hof is a Dutch guy, and for about 30 years, he had been doing amazing feats of strength that nobody could actually figure out how he was doing it. And he used to say, like, he could have influenced the immune system, the autonomic nervous system, and I think people just thought he was crazy. But he's done things like climbed Everest in just his shorts. He's done an ice bath for 2 hours long. He has ran a marathon in the desert without drinking water. He's ran a marathon in the Arctic Circle with no shoes on, just his shorts. And so he's done just the craziest things, and he has 26 world records. So anyways, science has now proven he was right all along. And so the lowest hanging fruit I always speak to people about is doing something like the Wim Hof method. There's other breathing techniques. I find his to be not only just gets right to it. It just gets right to the healing. And so, yeah, he's created the Wim Hof method that's breathing and cold immersion.
Oh yeah. It's pretty powerful. Do you discuss that in your book?
Yes. Yeah.
Obviously it's one of your healing hacks, and I think it's extraordinary as well. So that's fantastic that it's in your book.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the best, lowest hanging fruits that anybody could do anywhere, anytime. So for people that are listening and you haven't heard of him, I would highly recommend checking out Wim Hof method.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it is extraordinary. You know, what it taps into is something I'm a big fan of. It forces the body's innate healing, right? It forces the body to adapt. And to adapt, you get this massive hormone optimization and down regulation of inflammation. So, you know, it's really powerful stuff. And the breathing it's powerful. I mean, it floods your blood with oxygen, which just your immune system just goes through the roof. I tell you what, Wim Hof, they said, okay, this guy, first of all, they disbelieved him. And then when they realized, okay, this is for real, the guy is doing this, right? So they couldn't disprove him. So then they just said, okay, this guy's just a freak of nature and he's extraordinary. He's like, no, I can teach anyone to do this. Right. And he did. He taught other people to do. It's like, it's not me, it's the principle. And how many people did he teach? He took them all.
Yeah, he took about 12 guys for a week into Poland, and then they brought them back and they did the Rabout study where they injected them with LPS, liposaccharides, which is basically E. coli. Yeah. And then they saw that, well, they did it originally with Wim, and then they saw that Wim didn't have a response like everybody else did. He had controlled his immune system, and they said, well, you're just an anomaly. He said, nope, I can teach people. Took guys a week in Poland, came back, they had the same response, and then they were like, okay, this guy's got something. And one of the things that I'd love to say to your listeners is oxygen efficiency, or the way we utilize oxygen, is the most, I would say, is probably the most important thing that your body can do.
Oh, and by the way, when you're neurotoxic, Ian, like we were, your oxygen efficiency is like terrible. So we can't get oxygen into our cells, which is your immune system, nutrients, energy. And so you can biohack this by this breathing, which at this point you might want to just explain a little bit.
Yeah. So it just last year, 3 PhDs actually got awarded the Nobel Prize for hypoxia training. And hypoxia is exactly what you're doing with the Wim Hof method. And it just reaffirmed everything else we were doing through the Wim Hof method. So basically you breathe to hyperoxygenate the body, and then you exhale all the oxygen out of your lungs, and then you hold the breath. And basically what it does is you hyperoxygenate the body, you exhale and hold, And then when you exhale and hold, the CO2 and the O2 start to exchange. So the oxygen's high at one point, then you exhale, hold, you hold the exhale, and then the CO2 starts to go up and up. And finally, it hits a point where it triggers you to take a breath in. And most people don't realize this, but CO2 is so important. Like, it gets a bad rap. It actually is a vasodilator, meaning that it opens up the arterioles and the cells. And so what it does is it relaxes them, and then you can get more oxygen stuffed in. And so these PhDs found out that you increase the amount of red blood cells. And so the red blood cells have the hemoglobin. Hemoglobin transports the oxygen. And so you transport more oxygen to the cells, and specifically, like you were saying, where the injured areas are. So if you have damage to certain spots, this is where you can really start to see amazing healing. And I'm talking about 50% faster on, this isn't scientifically proven, but on even like things like broken bones or tears, etc. But even if you have like MS, Lyme's disease, etc., it helps all of those things.
Yeah. So basically you're doing like 30 breaths. And now some people say through the nose. Wim Hof was like, just breathe. You know what I'm saying? Right. Nose, mouth, doesn't matter. But like 30 deep breaths, right? Just belly breaths, if you will. And then, right, like you said, let it all the way out, hold. And then how many times do you do that? How many times a day can you do that?
Yeah. So it all depends. Like, you can do it 10 rounds if you wanted to. I recommend people who start out that they start out breathing through their nose, and they only do about 3 rounds. And that's just a suggestion. You don't have to start out that way. But people who are not used to getting that much oxygen, they'll get dizzy a little bit. They might feel a little weird. And a lot of profound things can happen once you get oxygen into the body, because there's a saying that the issues are in the tissues, meaning it's stored in our nervous system in the body. And when we get more oxygen in, it can literally push the emotions out of the body. And so people will feel emotional releases. They'll feel traumatic releases on top of all the other healing that happens, like the immune system stimulation, the autonomic nervous system activation, right? So the other thing I didn't talk about is it skyrockets the adrenaline during the exhale and hold phase, more than if you're going to go skydiving or bungee jumping for the first time. And so what happens is, in my opinion, this hasn't been studied, but in my opinion, what it does is it regulates almost every single part of the body. Like, if you're dominant sympathetic nervous system or parasympathetic, you'll balance out those systems. Yeah. It'll balance out your immune system. If your immune system's too intense, it'll bring it down. If it's too low, it'll bring it up. And so, so that's another thing that I think is extremely beneficial about doing that program.
Yeah. I have so many questions. One of my questions was, where in nature do you think this is, meaning that the body always knows what to do to survive, or, where was this? How is this a part of human nature?
Yeah. So you mean the breathing?
Yeah. I'm saying, I study nature. I study what happens, not just nature, but meaning, what happens in ancient culture, what happens to our body in times of stress. Where does this come from? How did he discover this?
Yeah, I do know he went to India for a while. Like, part of his story is his wife, I believe, committed suicide, and he had 4 kids, and he just, I think, was like, I couldn't handle it. I mean, that's a massive trauma at one time. And he took off, and I think he went to India, but he discovered it at a young age, the cold therapy, which I didn't get into, at about 18. And he went into the ice, and he said that's where he met God. It was like a spiritual experience for him. It was the first time he could focus his mind. And then he just he figured out that he could utilize the breath to heat himself up, to stay in the ice more. Which
is true, by the way. When I do the breathing and I go in cold baths, I'm good. If I don't, I'm out in a minute.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's profound. And so yeah, most people don't know this, but he's a pretty amazing yogi. Like, I guess you see him every once in a while, but he's done all that type of stuff. So he's done the breathing, and I think he played with it. He went out into nature and he thought, like, how can I stay in the cold? And if I do this breathing technique, the cold doesn't affect me as much. And if I stay meditated and focused, then I can do this. And for health seekers listening to this is very important. He walked up Mount Kilimanjaro in 31 hours. It typically takes 5 to 7 days in his shorts. My buddy Bart, who I host retreats with, did it with him 3 times. But they did it with people who were sick, right? Who had Lyme's disease. Another person had Crohn's disease. There was a few people that were ill, and they did it with him, with their shirts off, in their shorts, just to give you what's possible. They broke the record by like a ridiculous amount, just using the breathing. So
would they do it like when they're doing that, like most of the time going out?
Yeah. So when they'd get altitude kind of feeling of a sickness, they would just, and then squeeze oxygen to the head and then just keep going up, keep going up. And so, that's how powerful it is. It can take somebody who's sick, who typically couldn't even hike up a mountain at all within 5 to 7 days, and they did it within 31 hours. So this is part of what my book is about, is like inspiring people. And that's what Wim does. And that's why I joined Wim, because, people just believe that they can't get out of this rut.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing that I want to convey, is like, even in the sickest, unhealthiest condition, our body knows how to heal itself if we just give it the tools that it needs. And those tools are typically not poisons and toxins. Sometimes that can help in scenarios, but we need more nature. We need more connection with ourselves, etc. And so that's really what this is about.
It's as simple as good quality food, oxygen, and getting the toxins out. Like, I mean, come on. I mean, that's right. I have to say, like, if anyone even questions this working, I would just say this: you do those 30 deep breaths, let the air out. Okay. Time yourself. Okay. Let's say you go 45 seconds. Okay. Do it again. Take 30 more breaths, exhale, hold. I promise you'll go longer the second and third time. Why? Because you're hyper oxygenating your cells. And so the moment you realize, oh my gosh, it was so much easier the second time, you'll realize this works. And, oxygen heals.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And to add to that, make sure you're doing it in a safe place. You're seated or laying down.
Because you can get woozy.
Yeah. Some people get dizzy and pass out.
Yeah, exactly. So, put some cushions down in case you pass out. But, did you know Wim? I mean, have you met him? Have you spent time with Wim?
Yeah, I actually, I've been with him a few times. The first time I just did a retreat because I was in my healing journey, and I came across his stuff. I tried it and I was like, whoa, this is next level. And it turns out I wasn't even doing it to its maximum capacity. And so I booked a retreat. Everything I've always done is I try to learn from the best. And you could tell if you watch Wim, if you listen to Wim, you can tell he's got the it factor. And I was like, I want to work with this guy. I spent a week in the Pyrenees with him, got to film a video at the top of the mountains in the Pyrenees. And then that's when I started my journey to do the certification.
Now, he's done some documentaries and stuff. I've watched one, but isn't there another one? Is it on YouTube or Netflix? What's the one that you would tell people to watch?
So there's a Vice documentary that tends to get people like really fired up when they watch it, because it's kind of like debunking the guru. Like, it's like, we're going to find out if this guy's the real deal. Right. And so they go out there and this guy does a story and he's like, okay, this works. This is something that really works and it's profound. So they're trying to like find out if he's fake almost in the Vice documentary. And then in the end, you get to see the personality of Wim, which is, a great thing as well. And then, you get to see how they do the training, and they do it in Poland where you do the master's certification. Some of the people.
And how do you find that documentary?
If you type in Vice documentary,
Okay. All right.
Wim Hof in YouTube, it should pop up.
And do you train people on this? And how can people connect with you?
Yeah, we host retreats. We did the first ever, me and Bart. Bart is the guy who created the online 10-week course for Wim. That's what kind of took Wim to the world. And we do retreats in Costa Rica, which is not what people typically think of for a Wim Hof cold retreat. But we did the first one in the tropics, so we host them here. But we do it I have training facilities in the US. And so we do it in the training facilities, and we do it on retreats as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we'll make sure we put your contact information there, because I'm sure people are going, I want to do it. I want to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, we got one retreat coming up in March.
Okay, that's great. And that's in Costa Rica?
Yes. Yeah.
That's great. And we can find that information on your website?
That one isn't completely booked out yet, so it's not up and running, but it should be soon, in the next week or two. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. Well, that's one of the huge biohacks that you would say, hey, health seekers need to know. I agree. So what's another one? Well, we briefed on the detox as well, which we resonated with, but give us another one.
Well, so in my book, I talk about, on the topic of oxygen, I talk about the lowest hanging fruit. And then I talk about if you have the money and the opportunity. And so hypobaric or hyperbaric oxygen chambers is something I also recommend if you can get access to it. And so that's another thing in that realm. I talk a lot about intuitive eating. And, like you spoke about, diet is essential. And people are always looking for, like, what's the next diet? What do I do? How do I eat? And for the most part, if we pay attention and we're conscious of how we eat and what we eat, we'll usually get to understand afterwards, do I feel good? Am I feeling better? Am I bloated? Am I feeling worse? And doing an elimination diet and finding out what the triggers are. Now, I know that there's a lot of tests, et cetera, that people can do. And those are the things I recommend in my book too, like the Dutch test or the, there's the organic acids test. Mm-hmm. But some people don't have access to it and they can't. So the next thing I talk about is eating intuitively, like sitting down consciously and being connected with your food, right? So one of the things I always like to explain to people, which kind of brings it back, puts things in perspective, is 150 years ago, to get food, a lot of people would go hunting. And it was a whole process. They would, spend days or weeks going hunting. They'd kiss the wife goodbye, whatever. And then they go get the food, and then they have to kill it, cut it up, skin it, bring it back, etc. And then by the time it hits the plate, there's an immense sense of gratitude. There's an immense sense of spirit connected with it. And the actual act of going out in nature is healing as well. But nowadays we lost that connection. We just sit down, we shove food down our throat, which is part of my problem. And so that's why I share this, is like, I used to eat fast and I never used to think about it. I just shove it down my throat, go back to work, and that was it.
You know what, Ian, as you were saying it, I'm like, yeah, I'm guilty of this. I eat, like, especially if I have an afternoon meal, I eat it half the time just standing up, because I'm in between things. I'm moving, I'm here, I'm there, and it's like, and I'm just, there I am in the kitchen, just kind of like doing it. Yep. Standing up.
I still have to check myself. I do.
Guilty.
Yeah. So I had to, because I had gut damage, I was forced to sit down, chew my food, and slowly eat. And so when I started to do that, it also started to shift things. And not only the healing of the gut, it was necessary because my gut wasn't digesting food. And so I just became more conscious of what I was doing and how I was feeling and how I was connected with the food and what I was eating. And then I started to find out, like, that food doesn't work well with me. And then I started to figure it out. And so that's one way that people can do it. It's something that anybody can do, is, like I mentioned, anywhere, anytime. It's like a low hanging fruit. All you have to do is just be a little bit more conscious, a little bit more aware when you sit down and eat. and people can put a reminder in their phone just to like get them mentally connected with it, like kind of like drinking water, like people put in their alarm clocks, drink water at a certain time so you're getting enough hydration. So that's one of the other things that I recommend in the book. And then another low-hanging fruit, which I love to recommend to anybody and everybody, is castor packs.
Yeah, right. They pull. I mean, gosh, that's been around. If a woman's breast duct for nursing, their baby would get blocked. I mean, castor oil pack, man, that was the solution every time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so detoxification, glutathione increasing, healing the gut. It's also a biofilm breaker, which I know you're talking about. So it just has, I interviewed Dr. Marisol, and she was saying it has all the snake oil type of, like people, it sounds like a snake oil, but it actually delivers. Mm-hmm. So that's why I recommend it, because as soon as I did a castor pack, I felt like this relaxation that I hadn't felt in a long, long time, similar to what the breathing does as well. But you could just feel it killing the parasites or whatever it was in my body. I just felt a deep sense of healing and relaxation.
You can describe what you did, but you put it either over your liver or your gut. Talk about it.
Yeah, so you get these wool packs. They sell them on Amazon if you just type in castor packs, and get pure cold pressed, hexane free if you can, organic preferably, because the other stuff can be toxic. If we're trying to detox, we don't want to put more in ourselves. And then you pour like a couple tablespoons on the pack, and then I would wrap it around. I put it on my liver and then saran wrap around my gut, and so it stays on. Some people have specific castor pack wraps that make it easier. I found wrapping it saran wrap, and then I'd go to bed with it. And other ways you can do it is putting heat on it as well to just help the process. And then I go to bed and wake up with it. It's pretty nasty stuff. It kind of stains. And so that's another way you just want to make sure you put on like a, dirty shirt, or you cover your sheets and stuff like that if it leaks out. And then you do that ideally for 7 days. Repetitively.
So why does it work? What does castor oil do? What's the mechanism behind this?
That's a good question. You know what? I don't even really understand. I know that to be honest, I can't even answer that. I don't know how it works exactly. I've researched it.
I mean, in simplest form, it acts as a drawing agent, by setting up a concentration gradient. But yeah, I mean, I don't know why castor oil versus other ones.
It has, that they used to use it to anoint the kings and queens to their throne as they went up to the throne. And so it has there's a deep understanding. You're talking about, like, you like to research old, past ancient healing techniques, etc. This is something they knew about, that they've used, and I don't really know exactly how it works. But just like any other essential oil, like I've used a lot of essential oils, it can trigger some type of activation in the cell. It can bust biofilm, and biofilm, if you're having a tough time getting healthy and you're not seeing any advancement, a lot of times it can be the biofilm, right? Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah. Pathogens hide there.
Yeah. So over time, it'll wear down the biofilm. And then if your immune system is ready for it, it releases the toxins, and then it can actually help kill off the parasites because it's boosting the immune system. It helps increase glutathione levels. And most people who are sick have low glutathione. I had tremendously low glutathione levels. And so it helps it stimulate it naturally. And then the relaxation activates the parasympathetic nervous system. And so when you go into the parasympathetic nervous system, there's rest and digest. So you actually get to recover and you sleep better. Wow. The deeper the sleep is, the more you're going to recover. And so there's a whole combination of things. It's just one of those things that just it hits a lot, like the breathing.
That's awesome. All right, give us your exercise for the back pain, because this is a big one.
Yeah, so I always like to touch on back pain, because a lot of people have a belief system that's part of the medical system. And the medical system, it's important for me to say, is designed for specific things.
Mm-hmm.
What my program is designed for is people naturally healing and doing and learning, like teaching them so they know how to heal it on their own. There's something called degenerative disc disease. Degenerative disc disease is not actually a disease, so I want to throw that out there. It means aging, and a doctor wouldn't say, this is something that I learned from one of the best spine specialists in the world, that doctor wouldn't say to you, if you have a wrinkle on your face, you're of degenerative face disease.
Right.
So degenerative disc disease is just aging. It's just
abnormal aging, premature abnormal aging.
Right. Speeding up the aging process. So really we just have to figure out what's causing it. And it's really what we just talked about. It's going to be nutrition, lack of recovery, lack of rest, lack of hydration, lack of oxygen. And those are the main things, and movement. And the part of the issue now is that people aren't moving as much and they're sedentary. And so when they're sedentary, there's a stagnation of energy in the lower back and the hips. And when we have that stagnation of energy, it doesn't get the oxygen, nutrients, et cetera, that it needs. And then we start to see the discs wear down. And as the discs wear down and the muscles fatigue, it opens the back up for a lot of pressure and a lot of micro trauma, which is small little tears or damage, until one day they say, I threw my back out. And that's typically what happens. And usually people throw their back out like picking up a paper clip.
Yeah, no, that's the way it happens. It's the straw that breaks the camel's back. That's where that came from.
Exactly.
It wasn't the paper clip. It was the micro traumas happening ahead of that, right?
Right. So yeah, we design a program specifically just to decompress the spine and get more nutrients, oxygen, and blood flow. And I've been doing this for over 15 years now. And we just enhance it. And actually we combined it with Wim Hof method because it just takes it to the next level. But basically it's simple. People, again, can do it anytime, anywhere. All they need is a little pillow. They lay down on the floor and they do some simple movements with their legs and kind of core activation. And after about 10 years of doing it, I realized that this is not just a simple movement exercise. It's kind of like almost like a chi, like it's bringing energy into the body. Because
I almost want your butt to get on the floor and show me. I just don't know if you have the ability to do that.
Yeah, I potentially can.
All right, let's do it.
Let's see if we can do that.
I want to see.
Yeah, let me see. All right, so let me bring this down here. I think that'll work.
Good. Look, he's dressed for it and everything.
Oh yeah, I'm always in fitness gear. All right, so someone's gonna lay down. They're gonna put a pillow on their head so their head is propped up. This is biomechanically the correct position to be in.
Okay.
And the first movement is gonna be what we call a knee pull. And so the person's gonna put pressure down with their hands, tilt the pelvis slightly so that it activates the abs, and it starts to just move the pelvis so that we start to get mobility throughout the muscles and the tendons that connect in the lower back.
Okay.
And then we extend all the way out, extending the leg fully out.
Got it. Yep, I see that.
And then repeating. And we do 8 reps on each side.
All right, perfect.
For 3 sets.
Okay.
The second exercise is a knee drop, where we push the knee down to the ground and back up. This activates and stretches the adductors. It also activates the glutes, which is directly connected with almost all back pain.
Oh.
And so from there, so we do that same thing, 3 sets of 8, and then we connect the 2 movements together, and we do a single frog leg.
Oh, wow.
And so we pull the knee in, and now we're getting everything involved. The hip rotators, the glutes, the abs, and instantly starting to get energy and blood flow back into the lower back.
I would argue that the very position, you're also working the multifidus muscles, which in the low back, man, those are huge.
Exactly. Yep. So then from there, we do a double frog leg, which I'll show you. This one depending on the person, when they do the program, we may recommend it, but it's both legs. So it depends on core integrity, it depends on the pain. But that one just dramatically increases or enhances. And then from there, we do a stretch, basic stretch, but it's designed to decompress the spine. It's kind of like the butterfly. Mm-hmm. And then, let me take these off. Hold on a second. My other mic here. And then we pull from the lower back, pushing the forehead down, focusing on stretching the inner thigh and the lower back.
Okay.
And then lastly, there's other ones after this, but these are the main ones. Sitting up nice and straight and just doing a calf hamstring stretch and pushing the forehead forward and down to, again, decompress the spine. And so there's two more beyond that. But those are the basics.
Yeah, I was just going to say, hey, they're going to have to get your book for that. And is it, I mean, that's where it is in the book, or is it on your website somewhere?
Yeah, so in the book, I go into that in one chapter. I spend the whole chapter just on that specifically. But if people are averse to reading it, they can watch a video. And so we have an online program. It's in over 100 countries worldwide. We've been doing this for 15 years now. So that's another option for them.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Thank you. Yeah, that's at backpainrelief4life.com. So backpainrelief4life.com.
I'm going to write it down myself. I'm going to make my wife do this. I'll do it with her. Sure. So backpainrelief4life.com. Got it. Yeah. And the number 4.
Yes.
Got it. Got it. That's awesome, man. I'm so glad I actually made you do it, because it's just seeing it, I could see how effective, it actually would be for that. So. And
some people who are like physiotherapists or physical therapists, like they'll look at it and they'll start analyzing it and looking at it and saying like, oh, well, maybe you shouldn't do this. Or I tell people, just do it. Yeah. Because when you do it,
it's like the Wim Hof stuff. It's like,
exactly.
Just do it,
Yeah.
It's like if you did it 3 days a week, you're going to change your life. Okay, imagine if you did it 5, right? I mean,
exactly.
Come on. And there's a lot of breathing, meditating, this, but I'm telling you, that to me has been the one that I felt like instantly the most. And so I'm I'm with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Wim, I have to ask you this, what's his personality? I know he likes to drink beer. I know he's like, fun loving. Is that the real Wim?
Oh man, he's an awesome guy. Really, like, to a point where his family has to kind of protect him, like, cause he'll just say yes to everything. And they have to be like, no, you're not going to do that. Be like, oh yeah. You're like, oh, Wim, can you do this? Oh yeah, I'll do that. And
what's his diet like? And because, I mean, Wim's a little chunky. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna lie. But I mean, obviously, he may get away with more just because, give the guy Lyme disease and he beats it just with his mindset. I mean, what's that like?
Yeah, I do know that he eats about 1 meal a day, and it's in the evening. And so that's one of the things that he does do. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. And so, yeah, so I know his diet's that. I think I've heard 2 different stories too. Like, I've heard him talk about it. He has been a vegetarian, but I've also heard him say, like, in person, that he does eat meat every once in a while. Yeah. So I don't think he's like dead set in one way. But he is about intermittent fasting, and I know that's something real big for you, and I believe he does fasting as well.
Yeah, no, exactly. The breathing, I've had people, put themselves in a fast and do his breathing technique and transform their life. So I think the 2 of them, it's a powerful punch, fasting and this breathing, and I recommend it to everyone. Where do they buy your book?
My book is on Amazon.com. If you just type in Healing Hacks by Ian Hart, it'll pop up. Amazon solely right now.
Awesome. And, last question, with one of the things that drives me is literally the fear of ever, going back. What is your number going back to being sick, right? It just always drives me researching, etc. What is your greatest driver?
I would say it's the same exact thing. Like I talk about these healing hacks, but I live health. Like I live, eat, and breathe it. I don't have an option, to be honest.
I know, me either.
Yeah. So it's like when you see people see my diet, like I'm no joke. I don't mess around. And if I do mess around at times, I'll pay for it. But rarely I do. And what keeps me motivated is feeling good. And then also being able to transfer that to other people. And I didn't know what it felt like until I felt really, really, really good.
Me too.
You know what I mean? Like when I first stopped drinking, like I stopped drinking a long time ago because like I didn't realize how bad I felt when I would drink. And then I stopped drinking. I felt like, oh my God, I feel amazing. Well, what else in my life was making me feel bad? And that's not for everybody. That was just me.
Well, I have to moderate my drinking. I mean, I can have some really clean wine and stuff, but I mean, I toxins, I got to keep them away.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like once you can't turn the pickle back into a cucumber type of thing. And so I recognize that. And so I'm very, my whole life's about health. I wake up, I do the breathing, I do Qigong, I do meditation, and then I try to share that with the world.
Awesome. Hey, the good news for those watching is you can still turn a pickle or a cucumber into a pickle, so you can get healthy. You can't go back. I'm not going back. Yes,
exactly.
That's awesome.
It's very hard to go back. Once you become healthy, it's hard to go back.
Exactly. Well, because, I mean, you could go back, but the point is like, we're like, no way. I mean, right. I can't go back. I just can't. There's just no way, because I'd rather be dead and gone than have to live that life again. So
exactly. It's like taking the red pill.
Oh man. Yep, that's right. It was the Matrix?
The Matrix, yep.
Yes, the Matrix, yeah. Yep, exactly. Can't go back once you take the red pill. Ian, thank you so much. I think those were just phenomenal tips, man. I absolutely love it. Get
awesome.
His book, Healing Hacks, and definitely do these things, including the exercise, because back pain, one time in your life it will happen to you. So
it will. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, Ian, thank you for being on.
Thank you, Dr. Pompa. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right.
Well, that's it for this week. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. This episode was brought to you by Cyto Detox. Please check it out at buycytonow.com. We'll be back next week and every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. We truly appreciate your support. You can always find us at cellularhealing.tv, and please remember to spread the love by liking, subscribing, giving an iTunes review, and sharing the show with anyone you think may benefit from the information heard here. And as always, thanks for listening.